Gonzalez, Western Region Coordinator of the American Postal Workers Union. Basically, we're here to protect what we see the exposure of the security and the sanctity of mail. It's being basically contracted out. Post offices are being contracted and postal services contracted out. We think it should be serviced by the public servants who have sworn to protect the mails and provide quality service.
Do you think it's irresponsible to put these clerks in charge of the mail that here are not trained as postal workers?
Well, let me tell you, we have nothing against staple workers per se, but what we're concerned about is that these employees have minimum training, and there's no provisions that we know of for the security of the mails. Public servants, the post office workers, are trained, pass examinations, and under multiple laws to ensure the privacy and the protection of the mails.
So you're saying that's in question by putting it out to companies like Staples?
We're concerned. We're concerned. Of course, there's very little transparency about the actual contract here, so we really don't know what's going on. All we know is that the American public deserves the best possible postal service. Why not increase the services at the post office? Why don't you increase those hours? Why don't you fully staff? Why don't you put the vending machines back so that you can buy stamps and won't have to stand in line? Why is that? We think it's to privatize the post office. That's our concern.
Is it true there was a no-bid contract on this Staples deal?
That is our understanding.
What's going on with that?
That's our understanding, and we're trying to find out. Post office is being very, very secretive about what kind of contract and all the particulars, how the money's being made. This is not for the convenience of the American public. It's actually for the profit of the store, so that it builds traffic. If you want to give service to the American public, properly staff the post offices and enhance those hours.
So are you saying that they've taken vending machines out of post offices at the same time they're closing post offices and setting up Staples?
You won't find one vending machine at a post office, and if you look around the neighborhoods, they've taken away the collection boxes too. They've made it very, very difficult for the American public to be serviced by the United States Postal Service, and all we believe as a bid to try to privatize our services.
And privatization, you think that's really what's driving the Staples business arrangement?
Well, I'm not sure what's actually driving Staples business arrangements. All I know is it's not for the service of the American public. It's the people's post office. The post office preceded the country. It has bound the country, and here they are trying to dismantle it piece by piece in efforts like this.
Do you think this is connected to the attack on public workers, public services around the country? I mean, trying to privatize other public services?
If you connect the dots, it all relates. It all relates. Public servants, public civil servants are Americans too. We provide the services, but we also use the services. And yes, what's wrong with fighting for everybody's wages to become a living wage? And that's what we're after. And yes, we believe we're under attack. Most workers in this country are under attack.
Now, Congressman Isa, who has been pushing this in Congress, what's behind it?
I surely don't see him as a proponent of public services. He might say what he wants to say, but in fact, if you look at his bills, even his proposed bill right now that would allow the Postal Service to close post offices within 2 miles of any contract station like this one with no right of appeal by the community. That's what he's after. He's after cluster box delivery. He wants people to pay for the delivery of the mail. All that is ridiculous. All that undermines the United States Postal Service. It's the United States Postal Service, America's post office.
Now, the sell-off of post offices like in Berkeley and other post offices around the country, apparently Richard Blum is involved in it. Is there profiteering being made on the sale of post offices around the country?
Well, we understand that there's an investigation going on right now by the Inspector General in regards to the sales. We also understand there's some good-hearted Congress representatives who want a halt for the sale of post offices until the full investigation has been done. What is actually involved remains to be seen. Hopefully, nothing.
Well, isn't it strange they're shutting post offices down and opening up post offices in Staples?
It's not strange. It's sinister, is what it is, and it's one of those open secrets type of thing. Yes, they're closing post offices, and they're saying, oh, for the convenience, we're going to open community post office, village post office. When in fact, why don't you fully service the post office, fully staff it, and give America what it needs: full postal services.
You have a new president, Mark Dimondstein. Do you think that there's going to be a new approach of the postal workers nationally to deal with this privatization?
Mark is after more activism, and which is needed. Basically, yes, we represent represent postal workers, but we also represent an institution that preceded the United States. We represent the United States Postal Service, and I, for one, am glad at the activism that's coming on board.
Thank you.
Thank you. My name is Omar Gonzalez, Western Region Coordinator, American Postal Workers Union.
I'm a postal clerk. We're here because they're putting post offices in the staple stores, and we're not opposed to the stores being in there. We want them to be postal employees, and the public post office is supposed to remain public. The problem with having Staples as the stores, as the post office, is if they close the stores, they lose their post office. And what we're afraid of is they'll close other post offices, and the public will then have to go to areas where it's not a public service.
You think that's part of the plan?
Oh, that's part of the Postal Service's plan, yeah. They want to subcontract everything. You know, they want to pay $8 an hour instead of having good union jobs. And it's not about the mail or the Staples, it's about the service for the American public. And that's what we're here for. We're here to fight to save the post office for the American public.
I'm Angela, local 214, letter carrier, right here, showing solidarity with the clerks.
And why is this issue important to you? You're a letter carrier. This is Staples.
Well, I'm a letter carrier, but I'm in solidarity with the clerks. An injury to one is an injury to all.
And what's behind this effort to use Staples as a post office?
Well, I don't want to call anybody incompetent, but I don't think this has been well thought out. What's going to happen to the American worker when all the good paying jobs disappear? What's going to happen? How are we going to keep the economy going? How are we going to keep the car industry going? How are we going to keep the housing industry going? How are we going to be paying the next taxes to keep America going? Ain't nobody even thinking about that. And say,
Well, who's benefiting by this privatization?
it definitely doesn't look like the worker. America's been taken over by the corporation world. Okay? And what is the corporation world doing for the American public? Filling you up full of a whole bunch of illusions? What does corporate America want to do for housing? What do they want to do for schools? What they want to do for health care? What does the corporations want to do to help the American worker? Okay, what?
So do you think this movement against Staples and against privatization is going to grow in this country?
I definitely hope not, and I'm doing my part to stop it. Okay?
And Staples, now you think it's irresponsible to bring in people who aren't trained properly to handle mail?
Of course. And I would like to talk to the leaders of Staples and talk to them about their grandparents. Their parents and their grandparents, they benefit from big labor movements. So if they forget that, all of a sudden they want to go back to another level? It's as though slavery's been over since the 1800s, but some people's minds haven't left it yet.
So what does this have to do with slavery at Staples?
Hey, well, we've got to make sure the American workers' rights are protected. We've got to make sure the American workers get adequate pay, adequate benefits. Now, if the American worker is not getting adequate pay and benefits, how are we going to keep America going? The rich won't take care of America properly. The poor can't. It takes the working class to do everything. Everybody forgets that. When you lose your working class, middle class, you lose democracy. Where's everybody's minds at?
How long have you been working in the post office?
I've been there for almost 26 years now. Okay? And I'm with a different craft. I'm with the letter carriers, but I still think we need solidarities with the clerks, because an injury to one is an injury to all.
I'm Marilyn Green. I'm a pioneer. I was one of 50 female letter carriers to get hired in San Francisco, California when it was a man's job. And I was one of the last. I had to retire because my husband died. He's a Vietnam vet and he had the Ancient Orange, so I had to retire him, and I retired in 2008. So I came out because I received a flyer, a post office, a P.O. box from the post office in San Bruno saying that you could go to Staples and buy and do your mail there and open till 10. Well, I went there to buy a Stein, and there was only like 2 people there. The mail area was very unkept, and it's not a safe thing to even deal with. You had a person that was new, another one didn't know whatever, and empty equipment everywhere. You always use the post office. Anything out of the post office, it is not post office responsibility. You're paying postal rates, but it's out of the postal hands. It's not a federal response anymore. So your things can be stolen or lost or no. I'm here for that.
What's behind this? Who's doing this?
National Association letter carriers.
I mean the privatization.
It's probably the management. Because as far as they're concerned, they want 5-day delivery. They probably want 1 day a week delivery. They don't want mail. I have stamps. I have a scale. I have love stamps because my maiden name is Love. And I'm a great auntie. I send those 4 cards, all the holiday cards, and they love getting that in the mail. They know it's from me. Alaska, I get things from Alaska. I do email too, I get pictures. But the cards, they love the cards. Writing the letters. I write to another lady who's in her 80s. We correspond every month. And it's to read the mail. And my customers, I miss my customers. I did many CPRs, first aid. When a little boy was running away from home, who does he call? Talks to me. Well, I knew where the mom lived. I knew where the grandparents lived. I knew where the businesses was. And they were so happy. Here he was, like 20-something. He remembered that. And
so this is a public service for all the public.
Yeah, it's public. We save people's lives. We're neighborhood watch. Even where I live today. Right at my house, it's a quiet area, but you call 911 or you help. I know my mailmen, they're welcome. I love my mailman. I want my mail every day, 6 days a week like I did, and never get rid of it. I mean, Europe, sometimes Poland, was it once a month or whatever? They have to walk miles and miles. It is terrible. We are so lucky. We deliver through boats. We have carriers who use the boat. They use snowshoes. They're horseback. You'd be surprised in the United States if you ever tracked it down.
Philip Warlick. I'm a postal worker for a long time, 35 years, and I'm concerned about this, the staffing of Staples with doing postal service work that's being done by lower paid Staples employees.
You think this is part of the privatization plan to sell off the post offices and basically get rid of it?
I guess the old saw is that if it looks like a duck and it quacks like a duck, it's a duck. So the post office and there are other private entities that are wishing us ill as workers and as people. So it's appropriate that we're here.
Nice, beautiful banner there. Introduce yourself.
Oh, I'm Alice Lindstrom from the American Postal Workers Union, a retiree and a Labor Council delegate. Been a shop steward for many years and seen the continual attempts of the Postal Service to privatize at the expense of the mail and the public. And I know how I attended a Postal Board of Governors meeting one time because they rotate around and the governors didn't know what was going on in the post office. They did not care. All they cared about was procuring contracts for their friends who put them in those places. And this has just gotten from bad to worse. When I started in the post office in 1966, it was a hard place to work. But when I got onto the windows services, at least I was meeting the public, and I like this. I liked the idea that the post office is one branch of the government where they do something for the public rather than to them. And I liked being a window clerk, and it was, for the most part, a pleasant job. And as time went on, it got harder and harder as they cut back on the staff and made the lines longer, and and the post office had to make a profit. Some years, other years it would be nothing, and so supposedly it was supposed to come out even. But there were always profits scraped off to the manufacturers of all this equipment, who were making a lot of money off of it. And one member of the Board of Governors even had to go to jail, and another one had to write a book to keep out of jail. And and all the time, the people, the workers, the public, the union, we tried the best to work together and to make it better. And I think that maybe this is sort of like the last straw, and it's been enheartening to see all of these people going by who maybe were somewhat of our competitors, like United Parcel. They're honking in support of us because they know that all workers are in this together. It's for the whole public, not just the workers, for the retired people, for the generations to come. It's a public service. And and the post office workers are doing it along with a lot of supporters for everybody. I see there's people out here from the teachers and from different branches of the Labor Council, and I mean, and public people from the Community College Board. We have a trustee. It's so heartening, and a lot of retirees, not just from the post office, but from other people who whose mission in life now is to try and make things better and stop them from getting worse, and that's what it's about.
Hey, I'm here to support postal workers and workers in general. My name is Vicki Sawicki. I'm NALC, National Association of Letter Carriers, and post office, they want to privatize, which is totally not okay, because every single American gets mail in this country. That's every one of us. And if they destroy the postal service, we're not going to have a post office to go to send our grandkids their Christmas presents or their birthday presents. And we don't want it to happen. We don't want a day in the future we're going to wake up and there isn't going to be a postal service. So we have to unite all the unions, because this affects every single worker in this country. And we need real strong leadership. We need a leadership that's going to fight, not just in words, not just in little demonstrations here and there. We really need to organize and mobilize the entire labor movement.
Do you think this is part of the privatization drive of all public services?
Absolutely. It falls right into that. It's exactly what they're doing. They want to break up the post office piecemeal, and little bit goes here. They've already sold a number of post offices. They've contracted out this, they've contracted out that. They've tried to contract out delivering mail, and it's just part of the whole plan, and we have to stop the privatization drive in this country.
Richard Blum, Dianne Feinstein's husband, is she involved in this privatization?
Yes, he's one of the main culprits. He's the one that's selling post offices to his buddies. And it's got to stop. It's really got to stop. We got to take a look at who labor is supporting, which is the Democratic Party really supporting our interests? Not sure. And it's going to be a struggle. It's going to be a fight. And we have to organize on a national level.
Well, the other unions are affected by privatization as well. SEIU, AFSCME, many unions. Why isn't there a national campaign against privatization of public services in the United States today? What do you think about the rally today?
Oh, I think it's great. I was in the post service 35 years. I've been to many rallies and stuff. I'm an advocate. I feel like this. I work for a contract. I fulfill my contract, and they should fulfill their contract to us. That's all. Nobody asking for nothing that we did. That's all. You buy a house, they expect for you to pay it off, right? But what's the difference? They work you to death. I mean, I started back in the 70s. We worked 10 hours a day, 12 hours a day, one holiday off during Christmas and things like that. And then here it is, 40 years later, we're still fighting for the same things. It doesn't make any sense. It's time for a labor revolution.
And I'm with the East Bay Area Local American Postal Workers Union Secretary, and I'm here to help support the union to get actual postal employees working at Staples to take your mail. Not to stop Staples, just to ask them to put postal employees in there. And the sanctity of the mail. We took an oath to protect the mail. I don't know if they did. And I want that. I want that for my grandkids. And I'm afraid that if we don't stop them now, that there's a real good chance that we won't have a postal public service. It'll be privatized, and we won't have delivery to your house every day. So.
How can they have these non-trained employees doing this kind of work with the post office?
Well, from what we're hearing, they're only giving them 8 hours of training, and then just saying, go help them, and they're giving them picture books to actually work it. I know that when I was a window clerk years ago, I had already been in the post office for 5 years, and I knew a lot before I even got up there, and then they sent me to training for 2 weeks, and every 3 months you got updates, and you know they're constantly training. So
you have a tremendous number of rules and regulations, and I mean they take years to know. How are these people going to know at minimum wages?
They aren't, and they really aren't being trained. You can't even blame the employees at Staples. It's not their fault. They're just being told do this, so it's not their fault. But that scares me because I don't want to give them my mail. I trust the post office, I trust the people that work there, and I know my mail is going to get to where I send it.
Well, even elections, I mean, ballots, all kinds of secure things are going through this. Is Staple guaranteeing that there's going to be proper protection?
I don't know. I really don't. Which is scary because I know we do. We do protect. And we take an oath when we get hired that the sanctity of the mail, you know, we're going to go to jail if we start messing with it. I don't know if they've done that, and that's scary.
Is this part of privatization, do you think, of postal service?
I believe so, but of course I'm not a spokesperson, but that's what it seems like to me, you know, that if they're going to use non-postal employees to manage your mail, they're going to say, well, why do we need postal employees? And those people aren't making very much money, certainly not a living wage, you know, and they don't have benefits that are going to help them retire someday. So I've got to say that I think it's the wrong decision to not put postal employees in there.
Do you think it has anything to do with the closing of post offices? They're closing post offices all over the country, selling them off, and then they're opening up at Staples. Is this part of...
Well, that's an opinion. My opinion is that, this is the one big step towards privatization. You know, that that's just, again, my opinion. But why else would they be bothering, you know, to try to say, oh, well, you know, and then putting out lists showing how close the Staples is to an actual post office, so they can say, oh, well, it's only 1 mile or 2 miles, so we don't need that, and, you know, you can go to Staples. And so, but again, my opinion.
Is it true they've taken vending machines out of post offices, so where people can't actually buy stamps through a vending machine? And
yes, they did. In fact, I was in an office yesterday, and I looked around and asked, and they said, oh no, they took them out. You now have to stand in line even for 1 stamp. And so, to me, that sounds like management at the Postal Service is desperately trying to find ways to force people not to want to be in a post office because they're forcing long lines, they're understaffing on purpose so that there are long lines and that people complain. So that in turn they say, oh, well, now you can go to Staples. Again, my opinion, but it's not hard to see, just opening your eyes and look around. If you used to see 3 or 4 window clerks, now there's only 1 or 2. There's something wrong. So
they got staple clerks now.
Yeah. Let's hope no more. Let's hope this is the first step towards getting the American people to understand what they're about to lose. They have no idea. You know, they really don't. They don't understand. And getting the word out is the most important thing. That's what we're trying to do.
Now, you have a new president, Mark Dimondstein. Do you think there are going to be some changes? What do you foresee?
There already are. Hello, this is a change right here. You know, this has been known before he took office, and I think he's going to do a good job in getting the word out and getting the fellow and postal employees to help stand up. This is their job too. You know, if they work in the post office, they're just trying to get the word out, and that's what we're trying to do, and I think he really wants to do that.
Well, there's a campaign blaming public workers in this country, attacking public employees, their pensions and their benefits. Do you think that this is part of it?
Well, I don't know about that. I really don't. I really don't. I know that I think it's wrong what Congress is asking the Postal Service to do in pre-funding our retirees 75 years in advance. My granddaughter, who's 5, she could come work for the post office and her retirement will be fine. But it makes no sense to then tell the public that we are in the red, and we're not. If you take away the fact that we're being asked to pre-fund, 75 years in advance in a 20-year period, then you can understand that maybe, just maybe, they are trying to undermine things and keep taking away the fact that we are solvent. The Postal Service, without that, is making money. So
now, Congressman Isa in Congress has been pushing this attack on post office to privatize. You think they have an ulterior purpose in this pension funding scheme?
Yes, I do, because of the fact that then they put out lots of lobbying to tell us that the Postal Service is failing and that we're in the red. But we're not in the red if Congress would stop making the one and only business, private, federal, that has to prepay their retirement. And if you took that money off of there, you would see that we're in the black. We're making, and we're not supposed to make money. The post office isn't here to make money. The post office is here to serve the American people, and that's what we want to do. We don't want to get so much money that coming in that we're some kind of Fortune 500 company. That's not what we're about. We're about public service.
Jimmy Walden, American Postal Workers Union. I'm a national business agent. We're out here just to bring attention to the fact that Staples and the Postal Services brought together a coalition trying to say they're expanding service when actually the post office itself is cutting back service and just trying to take it to non-unionized workers. Any opposition actually to Staples and or their business. We just feel that the mail should be sanctity, and the handling of it should be performed by those that are sworn to office, the American Postal Workers Union, carriers, mail handlers, and clerks.
Are you concerned that there was a secret no-bid contract for Staples to get this deal?
Well, a lot of times we find out, I don't know for a fact that there is, but a lot of times we find out there's always some kind of interconnection, whether it be a no-bid contract or a friend or somewhat of the manager or the people that promulgate the contract.
And this whole issue, do you think the issue of privatization, they're closing post office and opening up at Staples, is there any connection to that?
Well, yeah, and you got to understand that. Not only is it the workers, it's the union wages. They're the minimum wage here where we're union wage, plus the fact, like I said, the sanctity of the mail is very important, first-class mail. But you must understand, when they close down a post office, let's say they put it in Staples. When they close down a post office, what's to stop Staples from closing or changing the location? Then that city or location, like San Francisco, won't have a post office at all.
You think it's irresponsible to turn over the function of the post office to a company like Staples?
Well, absolutely. We actually made a profit of some $681 million last year had it not been for the Postal Enhancement Accountability Act. But to turn it over to a company like this, we can't control where they are, what they do, where they go, or how they treat their employees, anything. Like I said, once they close that post office and take it to Staples, all they have to do now is close the Staples, and there is no postal service for that community.
And is it true that they've been taking vending machines for stamps out of post offices?
Oh yes, they've been doing that. Plus they've also been decreasing the window clerks. You may have 4 slots for a window clerk, but they only staff one of them. They're basically forcing you to come to a Staples, and like I said, what's to stop Staples from closing? We cannot control. The public interest is at fault here. I'm not at fault, but basically is going to be hurt. We have no control where Staples puts their stores, what they do with them. Post offices are mandated.
So this is part of privatization and outsourcing?
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. It's just another word for privatization. When you contract out to companies like this, it's kind of an undercut way to do it.
Are there any financial connections between Staples and the board of directors of the post office?
That I don't know. I wish I could tell you that, but I don't know the answer to that one.
What about the sell-off of the post office? Has there been some kind of inspection because the Richard Blum, C.E.B. Ellis is involved in selling these off and making a profit? What's going on there?
Yeah, we've heard a lot of that. There's been a lot of kickback and pushback by the members and different organizations on that also. Like I said, those are the same places where they're putting these Staples stores. Berkeley, for instance, the Berkeley post office trying to sell it. Staples in Berkeley, that's where they're putting them. So,
in other words, shut the post office down, put them in Staples.
Absolutely, and then you can't control Staples at all. Their business basically, and their management, and a private company, run-for-profit company, is now in control of where your mail goes, what it does, when it gets out, whether or not they take it, who's handling it, or anything. So it's no longer controlled.
And as far as public workers, do you think it's connected to the scapegoating and attack on public workers in this country?
I think it's a complete attack just on union workers and public workers as a whole. We're considered a public worker, but all we live for is livable wages on a 40-hour work week with benefits. We're not asking for much. We're not rich. We're not, at all. But that's all we're asking for. These jobs, these are postal jobs. They should stay with postal workers. If they want to put them in Staples, man Staples with a postal worker.
Staples got to go. Hey, hey, hey. Ho, ho. Postal Staples got to go. Hey, hey. Ho, ho. Postal Staples got to go. Hey, hey. Ho, ho. Postal Staples got to go.
Vernell Hawkins, retiree of American Postal Workers Union and Post Office. We're tired of trying to give our jobs away to other businesses. We have post offices that have well been doing the job and should continue to do the job of selling our products out of those facilities, not going to a Staples who is not union. It's not fair, and it should be stopped.
And who do you think's behind this privatization or going to?
I believe somebody's brother-in-law wants the post office so that they can have a letter cost $2 to go across the street. That's what I believe.